All right. Welcome to this deep dive into a topic that might make you think twice about your next beach vacation.
Oh, yeah.
Surviving a shark attack.
Okay.
Now, before you swear off swimming forever, we're not here to fuel those Jaws-inspired nightmares. You've sent over a WikiHow guide, an article by a shark attack survivor.
Oh, wow.
And a few other survival sites. So we're going to break down not just the tips, but the fascinating science behind them.
What's fascinating to me is how often we misunderstand shark behavior.
Right.
And that misunderstanding fuels a lot of unnecessary fear.
Right. You know, it's easy to picture sharks as these mindless eating machines, always hungry.
Yeah.
But our sources paint a different picture.
Okay.
Starting with why they even bite in the first place.
Take the great white, for example. One of our sources describes how they might give a taste test to something unusual in their territory.
Right.
Say a floating buoy. It's not aggression.
Okay.
It's information gathering.
I see.
Their mouths are like our hands, helping them understand the world.
So is that why they tell you to avoid shiny jewelry in the water?
It could be.
Yeah.
Remember, shark senses are tuned to movement and contrast in their environment. Something that reflects light erratically would definitely catch their attention.
Yeah.
And that exploratory bite could be bad news for a human.
Okay. So maybe skip the bling on your next snorkeling trip.
Yeah.
Another point that stood out in our research is this idea of sharks as apex predators.
Yeah.
What does that really tell us about how to act?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
Apex predators are used to being at the top of the food chain. They don't have many natural enemies.
Right.
And they're not used to being challenged.
Yes.
So if you encounter a shark, fleeing in a panic basically screams, "I'm prey."
I read that sudden movements can trigger that chase instinct. Makes sense. You look like a panicked fish.
The opposite. Freezing up completely isn't the answer either.
Yeah.
The shark attack survivor actually recommends maintaining eye contact.
Interesting.
It's a way of establishing yourself as a potential threat, not just a meal.
There's a video circulating on TikTok that shows this in action, right?
It is.
A group of shark divers
Yeah.
actually push a curious shark away gently. It looked almost like a standoff between two confident animals.
It's a great example of how understanding shark behavior can change the outcome of an encounter.
Yeah.
You're not trying to dominate the shark, but you're signaling, "I see you, I'm aware, and I'm not an easy target."
So even before getting into the water,
Absolutely.
our sources have some really practical advice about location and timing, right?
Let's talk about estuaries, for instance.
Okay.
They're a mix of fresh and salt water, often murky,
Oh,
with lots of fish activity. It's a prime feeding ground for some shark species.
yeah.
Particularly bull sharks.
Wow.
One source even advises staying 50 yards away from anyone fishing from shore.
That seems like common sense, but, you know, you're caught up in the moment.
And that's why having this information in the back of your mind is so crucial.
Right.
Time of day is another factor.
Okay.
Dawn and dusk are prime hunting times for many sharks. And visibility is lower.
Yeah.
Not exactly ideal swimming conditions.
It seems like location and timing can really stack the odds in your favor.
Yeah.
Even before you take that first dip.
It's all about awareness. And frankly, a little healthy respect for these imprintable creatures.
Speaking of respect,
Right.
you know, everyone says stay calm if you see a shark.
Yeah.
But our sources get really specific
Yeah.
about what that looks like. It's not just about floating like a log.
Right. Why?
One source compared it to encountering a potentially aggressive dog.
Okay.
You don't want to run.
But you also don't want to act completely submissive.
Yeah.
Maintaining eye contact.
Okay.
Making yourself appear larger.
Right.
These are signals of confidence.
Yeah.
That can deter an attack.
It's almost like you're saying, hey, I'm not messing with you.
Exactly.
But I'm also not afraid.
It's that balance that's so important.
Yeah.
And remember, sharks are incredibly sensitive to vibrations.
Okay.
And movement in the water.
Right.
So even if you feel panic rising, try to control your breathing and keep your movements deliberate.
Okay. Let's say, despite our best efforts, the shark isn't backing down.
Okay.
The classic advice is to punch it on the nose.
Right.
But our sources actually debunk that, right?
Well, think about a shark's anatomy.
Yeah.
The nose leads directly to that mouth full of razor-sharp teeth.
Oh, right.
Not the ideal target.
So aiming for the eyes makes more sense.
The eyes and the gills are much more vulnerable. And if you can, use a tool, a spear, a knife, even a rock.
Yeah.
But if you have nothing else, aim for those sensitive areas with your fists, elbows, anything you can use to make yourself a difficult target.
It makes sense to have a plan.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just a mental rehearsal of where to hit.
But let's be real.
Okay.
The best case scenario is avoiding a confrontation altogether.
All right. But let's address the worst case scenario.
Okay.
What do we do if the shark actually bites?
The first aid accident and emergency article we have really goes in depth on this.
Okay.
The immediate priority is controlling bleeding.
Right.
Shark bites can be massive.
Yeah.
So direct pressure tourniquets, knowing basic first aid could be the difference between life and death.
It sounds like the same advice you'd give for any serious injury.
Definitely.
But in this case, the stakes are even higher.
And one source mentions something that I found really chilling. Sharks can bite, swim off, and then come back to continue the attack.
That's terrifying.
So even if the shark disappears, you need to get out of the water as quickly and safely as possible.
So even if you've managed to fight back, it doesn't mean the danger is over.
Exactly.
But let's switch gears for a moment.
Okay.
I'm curious about something we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
This idea of sharks as apex predators.
Okay.
And how that impacts their hunting strategy.
That's a fascinating aspect of this, isn't it?
It is.
Think about the psychological effect on animals lower down the food chain.
Yeah.
They've evolved to be constantly on alert for predators.
Yeah.
Their survival depends on it.
So their fear is almost like a sixth sense.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And sharks at the top of that chain, they've learned to capitalize on that fear.
Interesting.
They sense vulnerability and they exploit it.
It's a bit disturbing, but it makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint.
It does.
It's like playing on someone's deepest, most primal instincts.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for humans to understand that dynamic. We can't afford to react on pure instinct like a fish would. We have to use our higher level thinking to manage our fear and find the best course of action.
I guess that's where that stay calm advice really comes into play.
It is. It's about recognizing that fear, acknowledging it, but not letting it paralyze us or dictate our actions. It's about finding that balance between caution and rational decision-making.
And you know, that applies to so much more than just sharks.
I agree.
It's about facing any fear, big or small, and finding ways to navigate it effectively.
I couldn't agree more. There's something empowering about confronting what scares us. About pushing past our comfort zones and discovering our own resilience.
We've covered a lot of ground here. Shark behavior, the science behind the survival tips, even the psychological element. But there's one thing I keep coming back to. The power of our own fear. Even when we know statistically shark attacks are rare.
It's a primal fear, deeply ingrained in our subconscious. Our brains are wired to remember and prioritize threats. And those images of sharks we see in movies on the news, it all feeds into that fear response.
So how do we reconcile that innate fear?
I think it starts with knowledge. The more we learn about sharks, their behavior, their ecological importance, the very real threats they face, the more we realize that our fear is often disproportionate to the actual danger. And that understanding can be a powerful antidote to fear.
It's like that saying, knowledge is power. The more we know, the less we have to fear.
Exactly. And that knowledge can empower us to become advocates for sharks. To speak out against practices that harm them, to support conservation efforts.
So if you could give one piece of advice to our listener.
Based on all of this research, what would it be? Approach the ocean with respect and awareness. Respect for the creatures that inhabit it, sharks included. And awareness of your surroundings, your own limitations, and the potential risks involved.
It's a good reminder that we're not just visitors to this world. We're part of it.
We are.
And our actions have consequences for all the creatures we share this planet with.
Absolutely. And that interconnectedness is something we need to remember, not just when we're in the ocean, but in every aspect of our lives.
This whole deep dive has really shifted my perspective. It's not just about surviving a shark attack. It's about understanding our place in the natural world and choosing to act in ways that benefit both ourselves and these incredible creatures.
I think that's a great takeaway. It's about moving beyond fear to a place of understanding, respect, and ultimately conservation.
Well said. So as you go about your day, maybe even plan your next trip to the beach, we'll leave you with this thought. Knowing what you know now, would you change your behavior the next time you're in the ocean? Would you be more cautious, more respectful, perhaps even more appreciative of the amazing life that exists beneath the waves?
I certainly hope so.
That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe out there.